Thank you, everyone. It's a huge honor to be here, a huge privilege to receive this award. I just want to thank the Guitar Foundation, the Wisest organization, and our team, including my co-founder, Angelica, who's with me today. About a year and a half ago, I was not too far from here in Dubai at the GEMS conference, and I heard Bill Clinton say that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. Talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And I thought that's exactly why I do this work. So that's me at age 7. If that picture looks very Soviet, it's because it is. That was my first day of school in Latvia. And I consider myself lucky for a couple of reasons. One, because 3 weeks after this picture was taken, I moved to the US with my mother. And 2, because after we got there, as we were getting by on welfare and food stamps, or state support, I got into a really good public school track in San Francisco that gave me an education that really prepared me for life after. Eventually got me into Amherst College, an elite private university that opened up a whole world of opportunity for me. When I got there, I wanted to play basketball. I don't know if you can tell, I'm very tall. And I didn't make the team, and I was kind of lost about what was next for me. And I think I was beginning to realize what I would later hear, that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And to me, it felt unfair, given the contrasts I've seen before, where I came from and the opportunity I had. And it felt unjust that most young people didn't have that opportunity. So I wanted to do something about it. And so shortly after, I met a classmate of mine who had gone to Uganda when he was 17 and started paying for a Congolese refugee to go to school. And I got involved. So we ran a scholarship program throughout university for primarily Congolese refugees. And when we graduated in 2007, we went to Uganda to figure out where to go and how to make this more of a real, impactful organization. And so on that trip, we saw 3 big things that really drive our purpose today. One, we saw that Africa really matters, and it's going to matter only more over time. According to UNICEF, the population in Africa is expected to multiply by 4 to 4 billion by the end of the century. 50% of the world's children will be African, which means that roughly 6 to 7 billion young people will go through school on the continent with the hopes of getting the same opportunity that education gave me. And to chase that, parents spend up to 1/3 of incomes to send their kids to school. But the second thing we saw was that for many, the promise of education is broken. Years in school does not necessarily lead to employment. It's because formal jobs don't really exist. And the challenge for most young people is that starting a business is the only option, yet school doesn't really prepare you for that. And we felt this broken promise was really tragic, and we felt that education, and particularly secondary education, is a hugely untapped resource for development. The last thing we saw was that youth can be the solution, and they'll have to be. They can't be a liability like they're often seen. And we believe that as a youth-led organization, our average age is slightly below 30. And we believe that through the experience of our graduates. And so that's why Educate works to transform education in Africa, to teach youth to solve poverty for themselves and their communities. We work to create a really skills-based, experiential model of education that directly helps young people take leadership initiative, start businesses, get jobs, and eventually move out of poverty. So after this trip in 2007, we brought on our 3rd co-founder, Angelica Town, and got going on this vision. Angelica brought incredible work ethic necessary as our first team member on the ground, unique experience as a product of a program like this, and tremendous vision for how to create a truly transformative educational experience. And so Educate works in secondary schools, partnering directly with high schools to provide a program that includes leadership, entrepreneurship, and workforce readiness training, a practically trained mentor, and experience starting a business. But in addition to just partnering with schools, we also partner with governments to integrate skills-based education into national education systems, because we know that is the only scalable, truly sustainable way to truly untap the potential of the next generation of youth. So what's been the impact? In a best-in-class randomized control trial, we've seen roughly a doubling of income in students by the end of school. And a bigger impact on girls, We've seen a huge increase in percent with the business, with again, a much bigger impact on girls. We now operate in almost 10% of secondary schools across Uganda. We'll work in almost 12% next year. This year we'll impact 10,000 students intensively and almost 90,000 more broadly. In 2012, we got a skills-based curriculum, a practical exam, and a student business club into Uganda's national upper secondary curriculum, so the last 2 years of secondary school. And lastly, we've created tremendous impact on youth. Lillian Arrow is one example. When we started working with Lillian, she knew she wanted to help idle women in her community, but she didn't really know how. She also knew that as an orphan, she was going to have to figure out how to take care of herself after school. And so using the skills she was learning, a safe space to get going, and some encouragement from her mentor to really use the skills she has, she started teaching idle women in her community how to make crafts. And flash forward to today, she is diversified into different products, employs over 100 AIDS-affected women, and exports to several different countries. What Lillian got from Educate was a safe space to get going, a safe space to fail, and a safe space to try. And if 90% of African youth are projected to work in the informal sector, meaning they won't be able to get a formal job, we believe that every student should get that experience as part of their education. Because even if you do want a job and are able to get one, the skills you need are the same. And the best way to practice the critical thinking communication skills you need for work in school is through a business. And so where do we go from here? For us, our 10-year goal is to impact at least 1 million youth annually across 10 countries in Africa. We want to work at an education reform level, partnering with governments in all 10 countries, and implement directly in 4, partnering directly with schools. This year, as we've spoken with governments in Rwanda, Cameroon, Kenya, and other places, we've seen an incredible tidal wave of demand for skills-based, really relevant secondary education. There's at least 10 countries that are going through a reform. And the big benefit, the big value we bring to reform is that making change in policy lead to change on the ground is very hard. And that's exactly what we have 8 years experience doing. And so we are working with Uganda on their lower secondary reform, are in close talks with Cameroon and Kenya about their secondary education reforms, and I've had a huge partnership success in Rwanda. Starting next year, 215,000 students annually will go through a real skills-based and activity-based curriculum where they'll use critical thinking, communication, collaboration skills to build products, market products, and gain the skills they need to solve the challenges they'll face after school. So to finish, I think in the last 200 years, the world has changed a lot, but education has not, and it should. Thank you.